Hey folks, it's Ray, Rainmaker.com here, and today I've got a very simple but long walkthrough of the Garmin Enduro watch. Now this is not my review video, that's up in the corner there where I talk about the 9 new features and accuracy testing and battery testing and all the charts and all the things you want. This video is not that exciting in that sense. It is purely me walking through the menus and showing you how some of these new features work and kind of explaining some of the more nuanced things that I couldn't quite fit into that already too long video up there. With that, let's simply start. So this is the Garmin Enduro watch. This is the DLC titanium version versus this right here is the stainless steel version. So this one here costs $8.99 and this one here costs $7.99, and this is simply 10 grams heavier than this one, which is lighter and costs less. On the back of the watch there, so you can see it's the stainless steel. You can see the light optical heart rate sensor popping on, and the same, I'll put this off the side for now, and the same over here, except it's now the titanium instead, which is lighter. That's a standard issue Garmin charging port right there, and the same Garmin Elevate optical heart rate sensor that we've seen in past watches from them. So it's got 5 buttons, 3 on the left, 2 on the right, just like the Fenix 6 series. There is no touchscreen on there or anything like that. It's just straight up good old like button pressing watch kind of thing. So this is your main watch face. Along the bottom, we've got the solar, current solar intensity. In fact, right now inside, you can't see that, but I'll go to some B-roll. You can see it from outside. You can see what it looks like right there over the course of the day on actually a rather sunny day where I left it outside my coat most of the day to try to get some sun on it. Up top here, we have the number of days of battery life left in smartwatch mode, followed up by my current elevation and the sunset for today. Now your settings will impact this quite a bit. And just to demonstrate that very, very quickly here, I'm gonna go into this and turn on pulse ox, which is the SpO2 sensor. And so I'm gonna go down here, I'm gonna go to pulse oximetry, and I'm gonna turn it on for just sleep. And we were at 50 days a second ago. In just doing that, basically halves the battery life down to 28 days. So pulse ox on all of Garmin's watches and on other brands as well is a battery blowtorch. So just keep that in mind if you do enable that. So going on down, we have the widgets. In this case, we have the solar intensity widget, where I can again show you what it looks like outside. And when I tap into that, I can see more detail from the last 6 hours, just like I do on the watch face. Going down again, we have training status. So this is showing my training load and my fitness. So I go down here again, VO2 max. This is from the cycling, I believe right now, yep, based on cycling. And it trends based on the most frequent workouts recently. So cycling or running, and right now I've got more cycling workouts than running. Oh, hey, and a quick note, if you're finding this video interesting or helpful, simply whack that like button at the bottom there. It really helps out this video and the channel quite a bit. And then scrolling on down, I got my 7-day load, and I haven't done anything yet today on Tuesday. So last Tuesday fell off, which is a higher training load day for me. And so you can see it's a bit lower right now, and then it'll pop back up again as I continue to add more load over the course of the rest of the week. Here is my load focused, basically showing what categories the training load is in, and then the recovery hours from last night's trail run that I had, so 5 hours left. Going on down here, we have the sleep. I'll switch to yesterday's sleep since it's a little bit better looking though. And so if I crack that open, this is the advanced sleep metrics based on first beat, something they introduced on the Fenix 6 this past summer and meant to roll it out to the 945 and 745, but never quite did. And so that's something that Garmin says they're about to start doing that again after they ran into some technical issues. But it is here on the Enduro at least. And you can see, for example, the sleep stages over the course of the night. Whether or not that's correct, I don't know, but it's there. And then recommendations. So you can see for this one here, if I go back to my watch from last night with my 3.5 hours of sleep, getting this review out, that you'll see it slept less than recommended. You'll see that I've slept less than recommended, and I probably should consider getting some sleep. And you can see the sleep quality score from last night was poor versus 2 nights ago was quite nice and up there quite a bit more. Going back into this, you can see the weather widgets, sunset, compass, FTP, and so on. These are all the standard widgets that Garmin has in there. Pulse ox from last night, I believe. And so I don't generally find the pulse ox numbers too accurate at sleep tracking or just 24/7 tracking if you would enable that. You should simply just do a point in time measurement so you can control the variables around it and not have any movement and stuff like that, just like they would normally do in a hospital or any other sort of sensor. So going back there, we've got notifications, smartphone notifications. My phone is on airplane mode right now. Music controls, temperature, my day, which includes intensity minutes, steps, calories, and you can also look into things like respiration rate. So right here at the bottom, if I go down, here's the last 7 days of respiration rate. Obviously it's not on my wrist right now, so you won't see my current respiration rate. So let's dive into the sports though, because that's what you're here for with the Enduro. So to get into sport mode, you can go up here to the right-hand top corner, press that, and you have the new Ultra Run mode there. And this is something that's coming to the 945 and Phoenix 6, as well as Mark series, and the 245 as well. And this essentially has a few extra features. So let's crack this open to begin with. And first, let's add a course, just so we have that in there. So I'm gonna go down to navigation, I'm gonna courses, I'm gonna do my one of my Chamonix courses in here. So this is a pretty long day. Last time I did, I think about 7 hours or so to do this. But before I do course, I'm gonna look at the climbs in the course. This will show off some of the ClimbPro features. So here's the climbs coming up. 3,800 feet, just about 4,000 feet in climb number 1, descending, climb number 2, descending again, climb number 3, and keep on going through all the different climbs. And the descending is what's actually new here. So in the past, you only got your ascending climbs like this, so average gradient 19%. And then you descend for a little bit, average gradient 21% going down for about 0.8 of a mile or so. And then you went back up again. And so this is handy to be able to see those down parts as well. So if you're looking at your entire day, you can say, oh, it's not just a series of uphill climbs, but there's actually different pieces that are part of that. So if we go back out of this then, and then we go to do the course. So here we go, pull that up there. This will load the course up in there. Now there is no maps on this. In fact, you can see this right now. Despite not having GPS yet, there's no actual like location stuff below me. I don't see any lakes or streams or rivers or buildings or anything like this like I would on the Phoenix 6 Pro series or the 945 or the Mark series. You can see the 66 hours remaining on this particular battery profile. That's without solar because right now I'm inside, so solar would add atop that. So basically a full charge. I'll just charge up after I was done getting some review shots and stuff like that. At this point we can press start right there and get going. And now if I go down here, you can see my first climb right there that shows the climb, and I would actually show my status in it if I was outside and where I am in that climb. So there's a quick B-roll what that looks like out in real life on a climb. And then if I go through these here, I can see the other data pages that I've configured. So there's sort of the entire profile for the full day. You can see it goes up and down, and all eventually all the way back down again. About 12.2 miles, so like almost 20K, I guess. And you can see some of the estimated time remaining. And then these are the standard data pages. And you can customize all these data pages as you see fit. So you can go hold the left-hand button right there, and then go down into Ultra Run settings, data screens, and then you can see all the different data screens right here. And I can add one at the bottom if I want to. Custom data page, you can choose how many data fields you want, up to 8 data fields. So just scroll through this right there, all the way down there, and you keep on adding more and more and more until you get to some crazy 8 data fields right there if you want to. And then you can go through the painstaking process of choosing all those data fields one by one. Now Garmin doesn't have any way to do this on your phone, which is sort of a pain in the butt. On the bright side, you can also change these mid-run, where you can't do that, for example, on a Suunto or a Polar Watch or a Coros watch. So if you do need some other data field mid-workout, you can do that. I just wish there was like a blend of the two. Like on the other watches, you can configure them on the web and on the phone, but I wish you could just, those two worlds should just be merged together. I want to be able to configure any way I want, wherever I want, however I want. That's my goal. I'm not asking too much, I don't think. So we're going to back out of this for right now. There's other custom data pages as well, like the heart rate page you can customize, or virtual partner, compass, elevation, music controls, and clock. So those are all the fields there, but I want to talk about some of the rest timer stuff and some of the new Ultra features. So in this case, we've got this timer going right there at the bottom, 155, and I'm going to tap the lower right-hand corner. And this will initially create a lap that you know and love. You can customize this lap page if you want to show more detail. But it also started the rest timer. You can see that right there at 8 seconds. Yet my main timer continues to run. And this is because if you forget to like resume your rest timer after you've been running for 15 hours or 20 hours, the last thing you want to do is lose the rest of your run. So it never stops the actual recording. It just simply like creates a lap, literally in this case, but also like a virtual lap for the rest timer. But you can choose whether or not to create laps or just create a rest timer. So we'll go into settings by this left button right there, hold this down. We'll go down to Ultra Run settings, go all the way down to the lap key. And then you can see I have the lap option, lap plus rest, or rest only. So in this one, it won't do any rest timers at all. In this one, it'll do a lap plus the rest timer, what you just saw. In this one, it'll just do the rest only. So if I change that over to this, and I go back here, back to the main page, there we go. When I press this time, it won't create another lap. It just immediately goes back to that white background. And you'll notice I go back and do it again, rest, and you can see it starts that, and it changes the background to black, which is sort of this indicator that you're in that rest timer. In fact, all the data pages are the black background. And then once I go back and press this right here, it'll go out and change it back to the normal mode again. So that's the rest timer, and then what happens afterwards is you see those rest totals in Garmin Connect. So you can see how much rest time you have, and the idea being that you can separate out the time in your aid stations from your running time in a way that makes more sense than just a bunch of actual laps. So this is kind of a cleaner way of doing that. And you can still use auto lap as well. So that's my preference, would be use just the rest timer without the manual lap, and let auto lap do it kind of behind the scenes based on my auto lap parameters. The next thing here, if we dive into this, is going into the ClimbPro Alerts. So we'll go to Ultra Run settings, and we'll go down to ClimbPro. There we go. And we go down to Alerts and turn it on. And there's two different options. There's start a climb or distance to climb. So this is just simply alert, just like a lap alert, but once you hit a certain point. So at the start of the climb, by either going up or down, it'll alert you the fact that that climb has started. So you can now, get ready for that and do whatever you're gonna do. But probably the more useful one is the distance to climb. So you choose this one here, and then you set the distance that you want prior to the climb occurring, again, either up or down. So this is useful from like a nutrition standpoint, where you may want to consume that nutrition before you start going up or before you go down, run faster, that you can do that using these alerts ahead of time. And you can customize the distance here in either miles or kilometers. So backing out again, we got the last setting that's kind of new here. And again, all these settings are coming to the Phoenix 6, the Mark, and the Forerunner 945, and some of them are also coming to the 745 and even the 245 series as well. So scrolling on down, this is one that goes to the 245. We have the record VO2 max option. Now, what this is basically doing is allowing you to actually turn it off. And so across all the profiles now, there is the new VO2 max for trail running, which essentially accounts for poor terrain and your elevated heart rate dealing with that poor terrain. So it could be running through a rock garden or sand or whatever the case is, that's going to artificially elevate your heart rate relative to the pace being slower. So that's why up until this point, a lot of people's trail running VO2 max estimates were usually underestimated compared to reality. It'd be a lot lower than they should be because it would see this slow pace, but wouldn't account for the crappy conditions. Same is true of my trail run last night in the snow, which is slowing me down, but it's requiring more of my heart rate to get through that. So what this option here does, though, is essentially exempts this profile, if you wanted to, from that at all. And the reason you might do that is if you got a heavier pack, it's going to go out and artificially inflate that heart rate even more. So for example, when I'm usually down in the Alps, I've got a lot of camera gear with me. I've got cameras and drones and tripods and all the junk that I take with me, usually to film videos like this or for other products. And so in that case, that pack could be like 25 pounds. Like, it's a beastly thing that I'm going trail running with, but that's going to increase my heart rate. And so by doing that, it's not only going to increase my VO2 max estimates, which is fine, whatever. It's also going to impact those training load estimates we saw earlier, because that drives that. It also drives recovery. It drives all those different components together. So by ensuring this is correct, you don't impact everything else. And what this option is basically saying is turn off VO2 max estimates for this profile, for the ultra profile, or for the trail run profile. It's an option in either of those two things. So you can just simply toggle that, and now it won't get estimates for you anymore, and you won't receive any performance notifications as well for your condition. Again, I wouldn't recommend this unless you're artificially impacting your trail run. I'm not just talking like a simple hydration pack, but like a much heavier pack or something like that. Okay, so backing out of that here, we're basically back to the standard issue data pages. All this is pretty much the norm at this point that you'd see on a given workout or a given run. Now, let's go ahead and I'm going to show you what the summary screen information looks like. So let me just end this out real quick here. I'm not going to show you this one because it's pretty boring. Instead, I'm going to show you the one from last night. And then if I go ahead and down into the actual details of itself, you can see we can start off with all stats. Here's my distance, my time, my pace, my calories, my training load right there, cadence, ascent. Look, it's the Netherlands. There's not much to ascend here. Going back, I can see the training effect on that. So my load, my aerobic and anaerobic impact. There we go. Scrolling down that. Going down again, we've got my heart rate zones. This is a relatively easy run for me over the course of the evening. I'm just kind of having fun out there and trail running in the horrible slush snow mess. Here's all my laps that are right there. So these were mostly auto laps per mile. But some of them I had the lap set automatically because of the rest timer there. So you can see lap number 6 was the rest timer one. So that's why I would actually turn off the lap plus rest to be able to have these just be my laps themselves. Active rest, this is the rest timer data showing right there. So you can see that in the summary screen as well. So you can see 56 seconds for that first rest, a minute for the next rest, roughly every 5 miles or so there. And then we go on down to map. and you can see that breadcrumb trail map of my entire route. I can zoom in here using the left and right buttons, so I can change this. I can go up if I want to, or down, and then over. It's not like super great like using a phone to zoom around a map, but it works. It's fine. You kind of get used to it. And here's the elevation plot. It'll be interesting to see what this actually looks like. It's a relatively flat run. There's only one single 15-meter hill on this entire run, but because of the scale of this, I suspect it'll look pretty big. It looks pretty flat. Okay, that's good. So you can see very little elevation change there. Just a tiny little pokes right there of the hills. I hit it twice on both the outbound and the return. And then download HR allows me to download my heart rate from a chest strap. If I'm using something like the HRM Tri or HRM Pro, that can download that data later on. Now finally, just a very brief swing through the settings here. Hold this left-hand button down for a second. You can configure the watch face if you want to, choose any of the watch faces that you want. So that's there. You can customize the data on the different components if you want to. Get back into the settings. I've got clocks. This is basically just choosing alarm clocks, timers, stopwatch, alternate time zones. Again, going back into settings here. We'll go down and we have my history that I showed you a second ago. And then I can change all the different sport profiles that I want to, change the activity types, and change the settings within those. I can change the widgets that we saw earlier, which widgets are ordered where, and if they're even shown at all. Controls is allowing me to control kind of a quick controls menu up here, so I can do things like lock the screen or access contactless payments or save the location. All that's kind of easily accessible right there. We saw the watch face already. Sensors are where I can pair sensors. So there are tons of sensor types I can pair, but I can also change and tweak the onboard sensors, like broadcasting my wrist heart rate, looking at the pulse oximeter that we saw earlier on, the compass, the altimeter, the barometer, golf club sensors. And then here are some of the paired sensors that I had. So the HRM Pro, it's paired, but it's currently disabled. And then some of the different power meters I have for cycling. But I can go up top here and I can pair tons of different ANT Plus and Bluetooth smart sensors. You can see all these types right there. All the standard ones that you would expect to see on the Fenix 6 and 409/45 as well. Going on down here, the map. Now in this case, there is no map, so it's really just changing the orientation of the zoom and which way it goes. So if you wanted to change that, you could. And then going down to phone, this is to go ahead and enable smartphone notifications or to change how the alerts show up. You can change that there. Physiological metrics, so auto detection of certain things like your lactate threshold, you can turn it on and off, FTP on and off for cycling if you have a power meter. And the same as True Up allows you, if you have multiple Garmin devices, to ensure that all that training load information syncs across all of them. In theory anyways, doesn't really always work. You can turn on logging HRV if you want to, if you're going to analyze your HRV data later on with another application. User profile, safety and tracking here is for incident detection. So if you fall, you can enable that to automatically alert your friends and family, or assistance detection, which goes ahead and allows you to hold down a button to notify friends and family that may be in a precarious position. So ideal if you're perhaps a female at night somewhere and you want to be able to quickly alert people that something's not right. That's an option there. And you can find emergency contacts as well as do group track where you're tracking more than one person at a time from a Garmin Connect standpoint. And then down here we have activity tracking, so just things like steps and move alerts and whatnot. Navigation, where I can look at all the different navigation settings. So whether you want the heading bug, you want the bearing, exact data screens you want displayed during navigation. So navigation being anytime you have a course loaded up, that's there. And then finally, Power Manager. In this case, you can change the different battery modes and power modes. And this is probably like one of the most impressive feature set of the Garmin watches that's rarely talked about. And you can see, for example, a max battery setting there, which Ultra Track, heart rate disabled, and the phone disabled. I get 200 hours of battery life at this point. Or I can go to jacket mode if I was skiing with the phone's enabled, but the heart rate's not, 77 hours. And you can create your own battery modes in here. You can call them whatever you want. You can change all the settings you want. It's pretty darn powerful. Battery saver will go to 130 days of battery life right now if I were to enable that from the current 28 days that I have set up using pulse ox. And then you can see battery percentage instead if you want, as opposed to hours. I actually prefer hours because I find that a little easier to work with, and that's what I've got battery estimates on right there. So with that, I've pretty much covered all the features there is to cover at a high level. I mean, there's obviously nuances to every feature, like structured workouts and Pace Pro and all that kind of stuff that I could literally spend hours and hours and hours just sitting here walking through this. But these are all the new features of Enduro that I want to kind of cover. And again, remember, almost all those features, or not almost all of those features, come to the Fenix 6 and Mark series and the 945 as well. And then some of them also come to the 745 and the 245. For the Fenix 6 and Mark, that should be today already, and then for the other watches over the next couple days and weeks is my understanding. Anyways, if you found this interesting, go ahead and whack that like button at the bottom there, or hit subscribe for plenty more sports technology goodness. And don't forget the full written review as well of the Enduro down in the description there, or the video review up there, and you know the drill. Have a good one.